Here is the discourse interview with Desmond Fox, and I'm Joseph Millard. So we're not allowed to curse, so that takes out like 8 of the 15 words I know. And so I'm just going to be talking to you about being atheist and just regular interview.
Okay.
All right. So
I can do a regular interview.
Yeah, it's pretty easy, right? So what is it like to be an atheist? Just general, overall. Just big opener.
It's fine. It's totally comfortable and normal and good. There's really I don't have much to complain about there.
Is there like being an atheist? What does that generally entail to you right now in your day to day?
What does it entail?
Yeah. What is it like to be an atheist right now? Like, and I'm using that specifically, not to be like a father or to be a man. What is it like to be an atheist? How does being an atheist affect you in your day to day?
In my day to day, it doesn't affect me much. The Gallup polls do show that some percentage of Americans, it's a large percentage, would be less comfortable with an atheist president than any other denomination of religion. So there is an existing stigma against it, and I am open about my lack of religion, but I don't feel as though it's actively negatively affected me in any way yet. It creates tension with family occasionally, nothing too intense, but being asked to do the family prayer or something like that during Thanksgiving, and I'm not against it. I'm fine with them doing their prayer, but I don't want to lead it because I don't have anything honest or heartfelt to say about it. Things like that.
And how does that make you feel being excluded? Well, not necessarily excluded, but how does that make you feel being surrounded? Maybe not even surrounded, but being presented with a typically religious outset at a otherwise non-denominational like gathering like that.
It's fine. The only concern that I really have personally is about my kids being exposed early without having the appropriate preamble and the appropriate setup for understanding what religion is. I was raised to keep an open mind about religion, and I was told about God and Christ and everything, and I was made to know that those are acceptable things to believe, and also nothing is an acceptable thing to believe. But my children are still really young, so the only thing that throws me off is when we have discussions like that with family without being informed beforehand that it was something that I need to set them up for.
Okay. So with that in mind, do you feel like there's anything you need to do or any responsibilities you have as an atheist, a skeptic atheist, to keep that idea going, to keep that thought of non-existent, deity, to keep that alive, I guess? Do you feel like there's a responsibility you have?
To a point, yeah. I think that several religions, especially Western ones, are very focused on conversion. They want you to convert people. They want it is your job to spread the word of God, and to convert people is healthy and it's normal and it's you doing your job for your religion. Mm-hmm. So there's not really so much of that when it comes to atheism, because there's not a religious side to it. There's no community. There's no sense of direction or agency. There's no duty that I have to fulfill. I think that the best thing that I do as an atheist for the community is just to be openly an atheist at all.
Yeah, there's not like a doctrine in any.
Yeah,
any
there's no
circle.
dogma. There's nothing that I have to do.
Yeah,
but I think being vocal and being comfortable identifying as an atheist is just to say that we're here and that we do exist and that there are more of us than you think there are. And I think that that's just the best thing that you can do for it, just because it'll make you less of a minority. It's easy to target minorities. It is easy to attack small groups of people or single people in a community. It's easy for that to happen. Yeah, but when the number gets bigger and that the number is getting bigger and more visible, that's when it it becomes an issue. It becomes something that you can't so easily discriminate against or attack. Or
yeah.
So being vocal and being open was made uncomfortable by my opposing ideas.
I understand. I'm more of a militant atheist. I am a little more gung ho about it. So I my problems aren't in line with that. So sometimes I'm I'm much more vocal. I'm much more into that expression. And I remember being surrounded and not surrounded. Being a militant atheist and teaching art at that Christian school church, and I remember that only being a hindrance in what I was allowed to teach, and that specifically was it was almost jarring. I wouldn't say it was like a problem, because I understand there are always going to be restrictions for teaching, but that was something, and I was trying to relate that. But what do you how do you feel? How was it getting into the atheist community? Like, was it suddenly you started interacting with more circles online, or was it like personal circles, or how did that expand your social arena?
Well, it was interesting because I'd always considered myself an agnostic beforehand, and so you'll know that an agnostic is somebody who doesn't claim to have knowledge either way, that there is a God
Right.
or there isn't God.
Yeah.
And so I always felt that way. But if you ask me, do I think there is one? And I said, I don't know. That's actually the definition of atheism. It's actually that as an atheist, I'm saying that I don't believe there is one because there isn't evidence to suggest there is one. And if there was evidence to suggest that there was one, then I would be in favor of that evidence because that would be the empirical right. And so for me, it was I considered myself agnostic until I realized that the definitions weren't what I understood them to be, and that agnostic was just the safer word to use, but it wasn't actually descriptive of my actual beliefs. And my actual...
Now, one last question. I did want to talk about Santa Claus, but we're running kind of long on this, so I don't know if we'll have time. No, I'm not going to talk about Santa. Now, the history of atheism. Where there have been like key important events for being a skeptic and being an atheist throughout history that have promoted a lot of healthy genial events, right? Like Darwin. He's a key example that a lot of people quote and sometimes misquote for their own benefit. There's also several figures, Einstein, right? These people came in and did very beneficial things, not only for the world and for humanity. In my opinion, however, there were some bad things that happened because of these events, but also for being a skeptic. Like they promoted these ideas as being a skeptic and an atheist, and promoted the good of those ideas. Now, do you feel like there are any important points in history that have either gone in the opposite direction than intended, like that church of atheists that started a while ago, or do you feel like it's only good that has come from these specific points in history of being a skeptic and atheist?
Yeah. So your examples, one of my favorite is Darwin. He wasn't an atheist. He was a Christian guy. He believed in God, and he kind of presented this idea that you don't have to pick. You can believe in empirical evidence and also believe in a creator, and that's fine, and that they're not enemies. And so I think that was a good first step, and I think we're still getting there. I think most people now will say that they believe in evolution. Most Americans even believe in evolution because it's true. Just like it is, and there's
that's just a fact.
There is no contrary evidence against it at all, and it just is a fact.
It is it's a theory.
Yeah. And scientifically speaking, a theory is a fact. So that's most people admit that, and also most people are still Christians. Most Americans are still Christians.
Exactly.
So I think we're getting to that point where, I think that any and all exposure and any sort of thought put into that. It's good, and our numbers increase, and more people find themselves, atheists or agnostic or generally non-religious, and I think that religion is a product of ignorance and a product of tradition, I think primarily people are religious because they're raised to be religious, and that there really isn't a stronger reason for people being religious in this world. So no, I think it's all been positive. I don't. The Sunday Mass or the Sunday Gathering, whatever it was called, but the group of British atheists who were getting together every Sunday, and yeah, there was some weird fallout with that, and there were some atheist bloggers who weren't allowed in, and there was like some weird stuff going on there, but it was only positive because it was in the news, and it was reminding you that atheists exist, and that they're not a thing, and that there's no agenda, there's no, like I'm all about the debate and the conversation when somebody wants to have the debate and conversation. A lot of religious people don't want to do that, and that's fine, and I don't want to engage in that conversation with them either. The big difference is that my mind is open, and that, if you presented me evidence to the contrary, I would believe it, and then I would change my whole worldview based on empirical evidence, and that I'm open to that. But most people who are deeply ingrained in faith won't. And it doesn't matter what the evidence says, because they rely on the notion of faith. So no, I think it's all been positive, generally speaking. I think there's no bad publicity. There still hasn't been, an atheistic warlord. There's still, it's still been, it's still all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing this. I tried to be as unbiased as possible, but that's impossible. So, thank you, and that was the Discourse Community of Skeptic Atheism.